Hello and welcome to the Quiver channel. I'm Jason, your host. Mental health support has always been underfunded in the UK. Always. Far worse than any of the normal health service. In fact, most of it is now covered by charities. That's the sad fact. And these charities get no money from the government, or very little money from the government. They are charities, but they're supposed to pick up the slack, and unfortunately the slack has been growing year after year. If I wasn't self-caring, if I didn't have these coping strategies, and if I didn't use and leverage every part of who I am to keep going every day, then I would be on waiting list after waiting list after waiting list. I've never been officially diagnosed with OCD, even though we believe I've got OCD as well. And it isn't because we don't want to, it's because there's only a couple of specialists in the area who would be able to actually do it, especially for adults. This is the thing, adults, it's much harder. The signs of that are there very early on in life. These are whole life issues. It is a failing by government, it is a failing by local education, it is a failing by teachers not to pick up people like me. I have here all of my report cards, my report slips from my school, and every single one of these is the atypical signs of autism. Every single one of these is. That these days would have been picked up. But my school in the 1980s did not have anyone who had any mental health training to look after the children. This is why a lot of people weren't picked up, though. It isn't that we've magically gained a massive amount more. We've just become more aware of the situations. Which is why people like me, because once you start going through upper school, you start to mask. You start to try to fit in. You don't want to be the kid that gets bullied all the time. You don't. The first time you stand in front of the class and you tell people about you and you overshare and everybody starts laughing, and you feel ridiculed, and then you start to get a nickname, and that you stop oversharing. You stop oversharing. You start to mask, and you do this from a very, very early age, and that's why people go under the radar. This is why people don't get noticed. I remember early on that the only times I could be myself was when I got home with my mum. Couldn't be myself with my dad. He didn't understand at all. I remember that. But my mum, she allowed me to be myself. And of course my computers in my bedroom, I could be myself with those. But that's why, and then you start work or try to go to work or try to go to college, and you try to fit in, you try to fit in everywhere. You exhaust yourself because everything everybody else is finding to be normal, everything that everybody else is doing to fit in, you can't, or you struggle with. And so the time you're supposed to be spending listening to the lecturer, the time you're supposed to be spending on the lesson, you're just trying to keep your head to the point where you don't say anything that will get you laughed at, you don't say anything that will get you told off, and that. Because we learn this very early, We're told very early in our classes, just exactly what we are like, just exactly who we are, and that we're told has many problems, will need to work much harder to be successful. He responds badly to advice. Far poor, immature attitude. Jason has made no progress this year. Limited ability and far too lazy. inability to get organised on the things that really matter, that really matter. This is why people with autism and that don't get caught early. Once we reach the stage where we can mask to survive, to try to fit in, we go under the radar. I was very lucky to meet Paola. Very lucky to meet Paola. She saw straight away. In fact, my friends warned her away from me. They actually told her not to get involved with me because I was strange and weird. And so, yeah, I was put in that situation. But, yeah. This is why a lot of people with autism and things like that don't get caught until really later in life. Because we desperately try to fit in and it doesn't work. When you go to work, you're doing your job area. When I worked at the factory I worked at, and before that the double glazing place, and before that the security firm I worked at, I had to psych myself up to leave the house. I had to drive myself to actually move out of my bed. I had to, every step of the way from my house to my job, I had to fight against my nature of who I was and hide it. And when I was there, I had to fight. I was doing two jobs. I was doing my job and I was also trying to stop myself from getting interested in something that would take me away from my job. Or, oh God, I thought I could have, when I was rebuilding or fixing stuff at the factory, I would have just wander off without, if I didn't watch myself, I'd just wander off to something I wasn't supposed to do, or something place that was dangerous, and my brain would just, and I'd have to fight it all day until I leave. And then by the time I got home, I was literally mentally completely exhausted and wrecked. I had to do that every day to leave the house. The stress, the depression, everything that builds up. This is why I can't do it anymore. This is why I can't function outside my house anymore. I've lost the ability to lock it down, to focus. It's just not there anymore. And if I hadn't started self-caring and started with Paola and started building up the computers and electronics and all the little fidget toys and all the little things to create layers of defense, layers of thingy, I would be so fucked right now. I'd probably be dead. I would probably be dead because the help isn't out there for people like me. As my favourite mental health person I met, the one who helped me start to use all of this instead of all of what they were offering, he was right when he said to me, "How are you still alive?" When he said that I was facing more than double what anybody else he had looked after in his 40 or so years. And sadly, a lot of those were no longer with us because they couldn't cope, couldn't survive. How am I still alive? He wasn't trying to think, he was just basically just asking because he was so surprised after reading all my notes. See, the thing is, it's not easy. Well, the notes tell it all. The medical notes, the depression. I mean, I never even knew that they were considering me autistic back in 2015. I 99% avoided doing anything other than looking after Paola. Well, somehow they had figured out in 2015 that they thought I was autistic. Today is the 2-week period. No, today is when, last week, no, 2 weeks ago is when I had my assessment. And this 2 weeks was where I could send emails of anything else I could think of. But we covered nearly everything. And now we'll wait another 2 to 4 weeks for an appointment, a final appointment that will be their report on me. And we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, the reason that so many autistic people and that are missed is because if you don't catch them really early, before they start to mask, before they start to try to fit in, before they start to create this trap and this feedback loop for themselves, that makes it just look like they're being lazy and that, then they can go through most of their life underperforming, feeling like everything in the world is against them, feeling like they don't fit in anywhere, and not making sense of why everybody else seems to find these things so easy to do. It's crazy. It is crazy. I am so lucky that I had my mum back then and Paola, and that we built up such an amount of technology and everything, and I had such a safe room. Of course, that took a lot of damage and was pretty much destroyed by all the stuff that went on and everything. But now we are back into this place where even on my worst days, I'm far better than I was in 2019. I still have a problem oversharing. I'm going to do another video after this. Let's just put these up. Bye bye for now.